So welcome back to the show. Today we've got Jacob Caris with us, and we're just going to have a nice chat about the journey that he's been on, how he got to where he is, and his new program that he's just launched. So Jacob, how are you?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
I'm absolutely fine. So do you want to let us know a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, firstly, thanks for having me on. It's always good to have a chat, and I'm sure over the next kind of 45 or so we can bring some value to the audience. So we'll try to keep the story as brief as possible and integrate some helpful stuff. So my journey goes, I mean, initially it goes well back to 2011 is when I first kind of found the online world, but I was juggling a corporate consulting career that was very busy, and it always pulled me back. So I didn't really do much. I kind of paid attention to what was going on in the space just because it was something that interested me, but I could never really implement. I could never grow a social media presence. I could never do anything because of the job. And it wasn't until 2017 I was actually living in the States, and my time there was coming to an end in about 9 or 10 months. And I was looking at, what do I want to do going forward? Do I want to keep doing this? I was at a point where I was like, I got to decide if this is the path that I want to take, because I was kind of getting up into the senior management roles. And once you're in those, it's pretty hard to get out. You look at partnerships and those kind of things in the accounting world. And so I had to make a decision, and it was, it wasn't appealing to me to be stuck in an office for the 80, 100 hours a week that I'd been doing. Long term, I wanted something different than that. And I enjoyed the work, but I didn't like the lifestyle. And it was that time, early 2017, that I got hit with an ad from Russell for their affiliate bootcamp. And I knew what affiliate marketing was because I'd paid attention to the industry, but I guess the way he positioned it in that training was, it allows you to focus on the front end as opposed to needing to focus on building everything right now, which to me made sense because I had a ton of other stuff going on, and it was like, yeah, okay, I can focus on sending people through the front door, and then I don't need to necessarily worry about the back end right now. And so that really grabbed my attention. And one thing ClickFunnels does very well is they integrate their awards and stuff like that to keep people really engaged. And the dream car was something that definitely hooked me, as it has for tens and tens of thousands of other people. And so that really became a heavy focus, was trying to win that while figuring out how this whole game is played, and doing it while working, pretty extensive hours. So I jumped in and started building out a blog and playing around with a couple of other things. Most of the first 9 to 12 months of my business was done on the go, like on my phone, on the subway, in Ubers, on planes, flying back and forth to clients. And it was really just trying to piece everything together and figure it all out. But it was in that period that I think that's what makes or breaks people, that initial phase where it feels like everything's kind of against you. You might be juggling family commitments, social commitments, job commitments. It's that initial phase where you're working it all out. That's ultimately what separates people in this game as to who goes on to continue with it and who kind of falls away. I think the fact that I was mega busy actually played into my favor, because I couldn't get distracted. Like, I didn't have the time to be distracted. I just had my little strategy that I was executing on. I was learning off a guy named Greg Jeffries, and that was all I could do. I literally didn't have time to, look at Facebook and watch a ton of YouTube videos and get distracted by everything else. So I think people almost give themselves too much spare time, and that's part of the reason they get distracted. It's like, if you can shut everything else out and focus more on just doing your thing, then you're going to have less time to be pulled in different directions. So that was really the first kind of 9 months or so I focused on blogging and ClickFunnels. Then I came back to Australia in 2018 and took a bit of time off work to see if I could really make a run at it. So I took some months off, kind of unpaid leave, and I was like, right, well, this is the time I'm either going to go all in on this thing, or I'm going to give it a go. It's going to fizzle out and I'll go back to the consulting world. That was when I started my Facebook group and got more into paid ads, growing the personal brand, and things really just took off from there. Around August, September 2018 was when I won the dream car and was able to leave the corporate game. I actually got really sick because I was trying to juggle both. I was working and I was come home, and then I was doing a combination of checking on all my ads, creating content, and doing some coaching stuff. And so I probably went for a solid 4 months where I was only maybe sleeping 4 hours a night, and it just ran me into the ground. But it was because I was enjoying it so much. Like I loved the thing that I was building, and I didn't want to sacrifice it because I had to work. So that was stupid, but is what it is. So I quit the job in about September of 2018, and then it's been full time since then. At about that same time was where I started looking for a new challenge beyond ClickFunnels, and that's what really got me introduced to the high ticket info space, I guess you call it. So initially high ticket affiliate marketing, and then creating my own higher ticket products and stuff like that. And that's really been the core focus since then. Is I worked with Legendary. I worked on a big launch called the Knowledge Business Blueprint. They were two big successes that went really, really well for the business. And then after that, moved on to rolling out my own program, which has been now going for 14, 15 months, called the Super Affiliate Accelerator. And we've just been working closely with our group of students on trying to take a different approach to the problem. I really like the affiliate marketing space because of what it's done for me. What I don't like about it is the way that it gets marketed. I don't like that it gets sold as this easy thing. I don't like that it gets sold as no work, passive income, all this kind of shit, because it's just not the reality. At least for me anyway. I mean, maybe there's people out there that are smarter than me that have figured it out, but it's just not the reality. It takes a significant amount of work. It takes a significant learning curve for the majority of people. And this constant barrage of new systems and products and solutions that promise the world for no work. It's just not the reality. So when we rolled out the program, we took a different angle where I could see an opportunity in the market for people who were sick of that, same as me. They were sick of that angle. They were sick of, being promised the world and under delivered to. And there's a portion of the market. What happens is when you get into this space, you want to believe that stuff because it sounds great. And then typically what happens is people either just get fed up and they quit, or they get to a point where they kind of say, enough's enough. I really want this. And now I appreciate the fact that I have to go out and learn some skills. And that's really the people that tend to come to us. Is they say, I've done hundreds of calls with prospects and customers, and that's been a common thread. Is I'm ready to give up that dream of not doing anything and money coming in, and I'm ready to learn. And so that's really the chunk of the market that we broke off. So we went quite specific, focused on high ticket affiliate marketing, focused on particularly Facebook traffic. That's gonna expand through this year. And then, really just preached a message of, look, if you want to work with us, that's great, but it's exactly that. It's going to take work and you're going to have to learn, which isn't the sexiest marketing message, but it means that when people do join, their expectations are much more reasonable. Their expectations are aligned with what we teach. And that just creates a much more, it's a much better dynamic and energy in the group. You don't have people coming in with their expectations here in terms of, Jacob said this is going to be super easy. I'm just going to get my link and be sweet. And then the reality is it gets in and I'm like, no, you got to learn all this stuff. So it creates a much better environment, and they're the people you want to work with, the ones who are, committed to learning that kind of stuff. So yeah, we broke off that kind of chunk of the market, and that program's done really, really well. We're about this far from crossing the 7-figure mark with that product. That should happen this week. And so that's really exciting. That's the first major program I've rolled out. And it's been an absolute learning curve. I mean, the things that I'm paying attention to now as opposed to 14, 15, 16 months ago, it's a world of difference when you take on hundreds of customers. When you build this whole thing from the ground up, the things that you have to figure out on the fly are super interesting. It's a real journey. And so that was 2020 was growing that. And then at the start of this year, as you alluded to, I've rolled out actually a couple of new programs and rebranded to really expand the scope of what we're doing. So we've gone from just focusing on affiliate marketing to information marketing generally, one pillar of that being selling other people's products as an affiliate, because that's where I started, and I want to keep that connection. With the other two arms being, you've got the option to go out and create your own products and programs. And when we talk about that, we're typically talking about something that's got a little bit more leverage. So it'd have an automated sales page, typically not too much support involved, if any. So something that people can go through at their own pace. And then the third pillar being coaching and consulting, either at a group setting or one-to-one. And I'm excited to be able to talk about that stuff now, because it goes back to a lot of what I learned in my corporate days as well. There's a lot of crossover between the online and offline consulting world. So that's been really refreshing to expand the scope of the brand and to be able to talk about some new things from growing that arm of the business. And man, that's the journey summed up in 12 minutes. It's been a ride.
That's the journey summed up in 12 minutes. That does sound like it's been a ride. So when you first started out online back in the early days, was you allowed to have a face online due to being in the consulting world? Corporate or not?
Yeah, we weren't allowed like a social media presence or anything in the job. Like we could have a personal one, but we couldn't be seen to be, in another business or anything. It was like, this is your job. And then especially when I was in America, we were working on really high profile restructuring cases. So either bankruptcies through the courts or even just big restructurings that weren't quite in the court system yet. And it was public and these are like multi-billion-dollar companies, not small businesses. And so we weren't allowed an online presence, which made it tricky, but that's why blogging worked, because I could do blogging from behind the scenes. And that's a tip for your audience is when they're getting started, you're going to get bombarded with a lot of different strategies. People are going to say YouTube, someone's going to say Facebook, someone's going to tell you TikTok. You need to pick the strategy that fits your situation at the time. That can evolve, that can change. Make sure that it plays to your strengths. If you've got no capacity to be on video, don't go down the video path just because it's what you're being told to do. It's got to play to your situation and your strengths. Otherwise, you're never going to be consistent with it. And honestly, consistency is as unsexy as it is one of the biggest things in this industry that a lot of people lack.
It certainly is. Consistency is probably the most important thing out of a lot of it. So you chose blogging originally as your video.
I think I've just lost you, man. Stream seems to have cut out.
Yeah, we're back.
All right, cool.
I can see the reason why. So as I was saying, you started with blogging. How long did it start? How long did it take for you to actually see some results with blogging?
It actually happened relatively quickly. So the guy I was learning off, like I said before, his name is Greg Jeffries, and he had and still has a strategy that's a bit different. So what a lot of people do when they go into blogging is they go after like really big keywords. So for example, we were trying to get people to sign up for ClickFunnels. So a lot of people were going after bigger, like they'd literally try and rank for ClickFunnels, or they'd try and rank for, ClickFunnels review or something like that. His strategy was less volume, but much more targeted. So what long tail keywords. So the articles were much more specific, and less traffic. You might only have something that gets searched 10, 20, 30 times a month on one particular article, but no one's ranking for that keyword in particular, like that very, very specific keyword that might have 3, 4, 5, 6 words in it. So it actually didn't take that long. I think it was within the first couple of weeks that a couple of sales started to drop. And I think in that first 9 months, the blog it was about 20 grand. I think it did overall. I mean, that was also at a time where ClickFunnels was really starting to gain momentum. So there was a lot of organic traffic coming into the search engines because of what they were doing over on Facebook and running ads and stuff, which is another thing to think about is if you can identify, opportunities where companies are growing and they're spending money on ads. Whenever someone's spending money on ads, what's going to happen naturally is people are going to start Googling that business. So if you can position yourself within Google, you can get kind of a trickle down effect of their ad spend. So yeah, it didn't actually take that long. And then I just started to integrate more of their offers. They've obviously got their kind of cookie system and they've got a lot of products. So, if you got someone in who bought a book, they'd only spent, $8, but then they'd either get the software or they might Russell and sell them something different. So they've got a really good ecosystem, which meant that, people were getting upsold and cross-sold and downsold and all these kind of things, which makes it easier to get moving. But yeah, I mean, I eventually moved away from blogging because it wasn't really my style, kind of sitting behind the scenes. I prefer to be out talking to people and, but it was perfect for what I needed at the time. Yeah.
For your situation.
Yeah. 100%.
So is that blog still out there? Is it still out on the internet?
It was until I got a notification like 3 days ago saying that there was some issue with the domain. So if I went there now, I don't know if it would still be up. I've got to check out what's going on with the domain. Yeah, there's a domain error that I need to look at. It's something to do. I just looked at it. Something to do with WordPress. Oh, sorry, not domain, hosting issue.
Hosting issue.
Yeah. So it was live until like last week, but I need to look into something that's going on with HostGator, obviously.
And was that still pulling in traffic?
I couldn't tell you, to be honest. I've honestly not looked at it. I haven't put any content on it for probably 2 years. But it would be like I would be 99% confident that it would be because the articles just sit out there. Not a ton of traffic. But I'll periodically check my ClickFunnels reports, my affiliate reports. And whenever I put an article on there, I always use the blog name in the unique identifier. And that was always popping up from time to time, either directly or as a cookie, like someone's bought something, 12 months ago and now they've come back and they're still tagged with that cookie. So you get the commission. And that's where blogging and YouTube as well is cool, is because you're building these kind of digital assets, this digital real estate that can work when you're not there. Yeah.
So when you started moving away from blogging, you chose to go the route of a Facebook group, I'm guessing.
Yep.
Why did you choose Facebook and Facebook groups as your vehicle of choice at that time?
So the reason for that was when I took that time off work, I wanted to start with the personal branding thing, but I still wasn't in a point where I could go like fully public because I still had the job. I wasn't working, but I still had the job. And a Facebook group let me start building a personal brand, but kind of behind the scenes, if that makes sense, because it's a private group. Only people in the group can see you. So I started the group because it was kind of a halfway in between. Like it let me start doing the personal branding thing without being out there and being fully public. So it kind of let me, straddle both worlds, so to speak. And I think there's a lot of power in them. There's, it's a community that you get to curate the content. You get to decide who's in there, who's not in there. You can really build up this, this cool environment. You can sell. I really enjoy running the group, and I think for anybody who's got designs on building a personal brand and an audience, I think they're an awesome vehicle. You've got to go into it with the right expectations that it's not something that you can work on for a month and expect huge results. It's a long-term play. I mean, I've been running mine now for 3 years. And
you've only just recently crossed over 5,000, haven't you?
Yeah, we took more of a quality over quantity approach. So, when you start to get new member requests, you've got to make a decision on who do we let in and who don't we let in. If we'd let the majority of people in, we'd be at 15, 20,000. But it's just not quality. Like, it's not, people don't answer all the questions. People try and join with fan pages. Like, you get a lot of requests. It's just a matter of how many do you let in, and are those people going to engage? Like, if they can't be bothered answering one of the questions, the chances of them actually engaging is pretty low. So we curated it. And you don't need a big, when you learn some of the, certain things around selling and marketing the right way, you don't actually need a massive audience in order to monetize. You can monetize quite effectively with a small audience. So I think a quality over quantity approach is better.
So when did you decide to move into the high ticket scene and concentrate more on the high ticket offers side of things?
Yeah, so it was just after the ClickFunnels Dream Car thing wrapped up in about August 2018. I was at a decision point. I was playing in a circle with like a lot of people who'd been kind of on the same journey as me in terms of chasing the dream car, and people have since gone their separate ways. The landscape's changed quite a bit. But I could have either gone and doubled down on that, but I didn't want to be just known as Jacob, the ClickFunnels guy. Like, I wanted to do something different. I needed a new challenge. And that was when I got into Legendary. I joined Legendary maybe 5 months earlier. But I was so focused on the ClickFunnels thing that I was like, I'm just going to leave this and not let it kind of distract me at this point. So yeah, it was when I was looking for a new challenge, and the math makes sense to me. Like, people get really hung up on this recurring commission thing, when you've got to look at the numbers behind it in an absolute way. Just because somebody signs up to a $50 a month thing, that doesn't mean they're going to be paying you $50 a month forever, right? Like, there's a lot of people out there preaching recurring, which is fine. I understand it's great to have a baseline. Like, I've still got ClickFunnels that pays between $3,000 and $4,000 a month for doing like nothing. It's great, but you need to look at the absolute numbers and go, what's that customer actually worth? Not, am I getting paid every month? And it's when you look at it that way, you've got, so for example, ClickFunnels makes you $40 a month per customer on their lower plan versus $1,000 sale. They need to stay on for 25 months, and the average customer is just not doing that. So to me, folks, and aside from that, you've got the timing element. Would you rather, let's assume they did stay on for 25 months. Would you rather get $40 a month for 25 months, or would you rather have the $1,000 come in today? And the obvious answer is you get the cash in today, because then you've got 25 months to use it on something else. You've got 25 months to reinvest it in ads, reinvest it in a mentor, buy software, make the business better. The return that you can get on that $1,000 over 25 months is a hell of a lot more than it slowly accumulating in your bank account. So I think there's an unhealthy obsession with recurring products. They have their place, absolutely. But it's not as great as it seems on the surface. You've got to look at how long is the average customer sticking for, and then you can compare that to the other things that are out there and factor in the timing as well. So when I kind of looked at all those things, that's what really excited me about the high ticket space, and it's in line with the quality over quantity thing we just spoke about too. Like, you don't need that many customers to build a 10, 20, 30K a month business. Whereas if you're selling in the $100, $200, $300 kind of price range, you need a pretty serious amount of volume, and you're paying the same. If you're doing ads, you're paying the same amount for those leads. It's just how much you're extracting. Or if you're doing organic, you're doing the same work. It's just, how much are you extracting on average per customer? So that was really what enticed me about the space. And the other thing you find too is when people spend more, they're typically more committed. It's not always the way. There's an expression that Russell uses. I know he didn't come up with it, but it's the people who pay attention. I think it goes one step further, and it's more like people who pay enough that it kind of scares them a little bit and it makes them feel a little bit uncomfortable. Those people pay attention, because if you go and spend $2,000 on something and it's like, that's not moving the needle on my credit card statement or whatever, you're not going to pay attention to it. But if that's, something that you seriously need to think about and then you make the investment, you're probably going to pay a lot more attention to it. So you get people who are, they show up more, they go through the training more, they stick with things for longer. So I just think it has a lot of benefits to it, for both the business owner and the customer.
Mm-hmm. So your first high ticket offers, weren't they part of the Legendary Marketer program?
Yeah, that was really the first high ticket program that I started promoting. Back then, you actually had to own it, all of their stuff to promote it. It was a different model to what they've got now. I prefer that model because nowadays you've got people who are promoting stuff that they have never bought themselves and they don't really know what they're promoting. But there was reasons for that change. And so I invested a lot of money with them to be able to go through their programs and see what I was promoting and go to their events and stuff like that. And again, when you spend money to buy a product and go through it, you're way more likely to stick with it. If they'd had a free affiliate program, the chances that I'd stick around and heavily promote it, probably a lot less. I probably wouldn't be here today because I spent money with them and had to invest and go through all their stuff. It meant that I was really committed to that offer and that company, which comes back to what we were talking about before. So yeah, they were the first main high ticket thing that I promoted. And then that rolled into a launch in about April, May of the following year, 2019, which was the KBB launch. That was a high ticket info product as well. Obviously different structure because it was a launch as opposed to like an evergreen sales process. But same thing. And that just kind of reinforced to me a couple of things. It was like, yeah, high ticket is the way to go. And that success really got me going, okay, you know what you're doing at this point. You've probably got the ability now to go and do your own thing. And that's what then ultimately became the catalyst for SAA.
Awesome. So obviously now moving a little bit forward into Super Affiliate Accelerator. What's it been like having as many students that you have and seeing them progress in themselves and hitting them numbers that you probably even thought it wasn't even possible at the beginning of launching that? Like, is it Aaron that's just crossed 100K in commissions?
SAA?
SAA, yeah.
Yeah, so SAA is just about to cross $1 million in sales. Yeah.
Yeah, and some of them, some of your students have done.
Oh, some of the students, yeah. So one guy just crossed 100K. Yeah. 100K in sales. Yeah.
So what are some of the challenges that you've come across when running that program?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So when we first rolled it out, we did it in like a beta kind of style. We pre-sold it, which is a really cool thing to do if anyone's looking to roll out their own program. It's not 100% necessary. You don't have to do it, but it has its benefits. So we had the idea, we had the framework, we knew where we were going to take everyone, and then we gave ourselves about 3 weeks, a month, and we sold 40 spots at $1,000 a head. And that was with what it's a concept Sam Ovens talks about called an MVO, which is a minimum viable offer. So we knew what the content was going to cover. We had our Facebook group. We had our support schedule, which is, we're going to go live each week at a certain time. And then we had a checkout form, and that's what we we sold, which is pretty cool because, you know, you can get moving quickly if you've got clarity on where you ultimately want to take it. So we took on 40 people in the beta. That was the first time I'd worked with people at those kind of numbers. So the initial learning experience was, okay, I understand this stuff and the guys I'm working with understand this stuff, but how do you really articulate that in a way that other people are going to get it? So that's always a learning curve, and that's always something you're aiming to improve on when you're teaching other people things, is how do I articulate this in a way that doesn't just make sense to me, but it makes sense to other people. And this is why in content you have to repeat yourself, is because, you know, most people have a core message or a core few messages that you need to reinforce over and over again, but you keep saying things like, if you listen to Gary Vee, you listen to Grant Cardone, they've got like 3, 4, 5 core things that they talk about, but they keep saying them in a different way so that when that message clicks for their audience, it clicks when they hear it in a way that makes sense to them. And that's the same when you're coaching people or when you're creating an info product, is, you know, you need to articulate things in a way that's going to make sense to other people. So that was probably the first challenge, was making sure that people, you know, it made sense to them, not just us. Then when we really opened the program up and we started taking on more people, one thing I'd never really paid much attention to was setting really strict rules. So when you run a program, you need to be crystal clear with people. This is where you get support. This is where you don't get support. This is what you do in this scenario. This is what you do in this scenario. Because what started happening was, between myself and Jamie and Chris, the guys that I run it with, it just got out of hand in terms of people messaging and all this kind of, like, you will tell people, do this, don't do this, do this. They won't listen. Like, people don't listen. They just don't. And you need to keep saying, like, we literally post nearly every other week, here's how you get support. Don't message us directly. There's 570 of you. We can't work with everybody directly. So that was a big learning curve, was making sure that there's, you know, strict rules in place and they get regularly reinforced, and you don't deviate from them, because if you start deviating from them a couple of times, then that starts to become the accepted practice, and you just very quickly end up in chaos. So that's a massive thing, is setting rules around contact, because with a few hundred students, if they all feel like they can message you, your life is over. Like, good luck, you're done. So that was definitely a massive learning curve. I think the other big learning curve going through it from a business perspective, there's probably 2 other main ones. One is there comes a time where people always want more value, more stuff, more. There comes a time where you need to draw a line in the sand a little bit and say, you know, enough's enough, kind of, because you go beyond a point where providing more value is not actually helping anybody. More trainings, making things more complex for them. The more stuff you give them for free, there's this like familiarity problem that kicks in. It's like, well, Jacob's just giving me all this stuff for free, so I'm going to go buy off somebody else. It's this weird, like, inverse relationship where everybody thinks that if I just give people more stuff for free, they'll keep buying more from me. And it's just not the way that it works. Like, if you don't kind of draw a line in the sand and say, no, that's like, this is the scope of the program and this is where we're stopping, they'll just want more and expect more for free while they go and buy from other people. So you do have to juggle that to a degree, especially when you're rolling out like a bigger program. So then it becomes a matter of, well, you know, how do I keep people engaged if we're not adding a ton of more content all the time? And that's a battle in itself. And then I think the other big not necessarily a learning curve, but more of just a management thing, is it doesn't matter how much you help people. So we've been doing weekly calls now for 15 months and we've never missed a week, which in the internet marketing space is like unheard of. People come and go with programs so quickly. We've been in the group every day, 24 to 48 hour response time on all questions. People never get missed out. And it doesn't matter how good your training is. It doesn't matter how much you want to help people. It doesn't matter how much you do help people and fulfill on all those things. There is always going to be people who will attack you and try and bring you down. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much of a saint you are in terms of doing the right thing or trying to do the right thing, you will never please everybody. So don't even bother trying. Like you just can't do it, plain and simple. And you can't let those moments, get you down too much. You just got to plow through them. So that'd be the biggest learning curves, I'd say.
Brilliant. So with this new program that you've just launched this year, the Fast Cash Rolodex.
Yep.
What's that all about? So you get 7 strategies to help you generate cash on demand. Can you explain
so I'll share the kind of backstory on it. So when we were talking before about my consulting career, we worked with companies that were in distress, and my role in particular was typically I'd go in and work with either the CFO or the treasurer, and the focus was always on cash flow in those situations. It's how can we free up liquidity? How can we make sure that we can pay wages this week? How do we find and generate cash? Because without, everyone talks about it, but without both cash on hand and ability to find or generate cash, it's really tricky to be in business. And so when I came into the online space, I was like, I need to, draw on the experiences that I've got. And one of those is businesses need an ability to generate cash and quickly. So over the last few years, I've just been, compiling these different strategies, and I've got some folders and stuff that sit on my desk, and I print stuff out and build out folders of different strategies and stuff that I pick up over time. And one thing that I've always looked out for, but I've never found is literally a program that just focuses on here's a, Rolodex or whatever you want to call it of strategies that will let you generate cash quickly. And it's something I've wanted to put together for a long time. And because we were heavily involved in SAA, which I've stepped back from a little bit now, I had a bit of capacity at the start of the year. So I literally locked myself in the office for about 4 or 5 days and got it done. What it's built around is in each of those strategies, we spend a chunk of time talking about what I call psychological buying triggers. So there's these things that if you can stack them on top of each other, makes it really hard for people not to jump at an offer. Not everyone's going to jump at it, but the people that read it and it hooks them, if you stack these few things on top, like scarcity, like exclusivity, like it being new, like it being kind of personalized and bespoke, there's all these different things you can, if you don't just put one of them, like, oh, my new program's out, but my new program's out and I'm only taking 5 people and the doors are closing in 5 hours and I'm going to be working directly with these 5 people. Like if you start to stack those 5 things on top of each other or whatever number of them, every one that you layer becomes more and more powerful. And so the way these are structured is that they all have multiple of those triggers built into them, which makes it really effective to get people to buy stuff quickly. And so, yeah, it's a very to the point. I think in total, there'd be between maybe 3 and 4 hours of content. It's not a lot of sitting and watching videos. It's do this, do that. Here's the copy framework. Here's the emails to send. Here's the Facebook posts. Go and plug in your offers and off you go. Which is where, that's where I want all my content to be. I can't, as a busy business owner, getting into a course and then having to sit and watch like 3-hour-long videos is pretty tough. You just don't have the time to do it. And so that's where all our stuff is geared towards is very short, punchy, to the point. Do this, do that, do this. And so yeah, that's what it's all built around. It's really something that I always looked for and was never able to find. So I just went, fuck it, and built it myself.
Cool. So are there strategies for different selling techniques then? Is that what you were getting at there?
Yeah, so it's like different structures that you can roll out, or different types of content that you can create in order to sell. So yeah, different selling strategies, but also different offer structures. So for example, a big one being people love something that's new, but you don't always have a new program to roll out, right? So there's a couple of ones in there where you can kind of put a new bow around an existing program, that all of a sudden you've got something new to offer people without actually needing to go and reinvent the wheel. So it's both offer structure and sales process that kind of really doubles down on those triggers that we spoke about. Yeah.
That's fantastic. So guys, just as it says on the screen, if you head over to Michael Ellis Online /go/fast cash, that'll send you over to the Fast Cash Rolodex website. It's linked in the description, and if you're listening on the podcast, it's also linked in the show notes as well. So you can head over there, you can check out the video and the massive amount of copywriting that there is on that page.
Yeah, it's pretty long.
Because it's not overbearing, by the way, before I kind of scare people off. It's not overbearing, but it's definitely enough for you to understand exactly what the program is and to be able to make a decision on the spot, which is perfect. So just quickly, what's your favorite food?
Oh, well, I commented on your post when someone asked that. Ever since I was a little kid, I've always been obsessed with mashed potatoes. Like, I just love mashed potato. And it's probably going to put me in an early grave with the way that I cook it, with the amount of butter and milk and, you know, all this unhealthy shit. But if I could go out for a dinner, it's going to be one of two things. It's either going to be Japanese food, or if I'm with a bunch of guys and we're going out for kind of a lad's dinner, so to speak, it'd be a steak with a nice glass of red wine would be the go-to.
Great. And Shelley Hopkins wants to know when you're moving over to Oklahoma.
I don't even know what Oklahoma is.
It's in the United States.
I knew that much, but I couldn't tell you where it is on a map.
No, I couldn't either.
Shelley, you're going to have to, I love you and you're great, but you're going to have to put together a pretty compelling case to get me away from my pad on the beach here. I'm not sure. You might. I know you're doing really well on TikTok, but you might have to level up your sales game a little bit if you're going to convince me away from the Gold Coast.
That's funny. So guys, if, like I said before, just to mention it again, if you head yourself over to michaelelisonline.com/go/fast-cash, that will send you over to Jacob's website, which you can check out all the program details in full. And it's also worth noting that the price will increase after the 31st of January.
That's right.
Am I correct in saying that?
Yes.
And Jacob is not one for fake scarcity. He does put the prices up. Yeah.
We had a guy jump in this week who took one of the strategies and sent out one email and 3x'd his investment with like a 5-line email. So it's one of those things that it's for people that are going to grab it and do something with it. And assuming you've got something to sell and you've got some people to sell it to, it'll work well for you.
And that's exactly what it says on the website too. If you've got something to sell and you've got some kind of audience to sell it to, it's going to work.
Yep.
It's been brilliant chatting to you today. If there's one question I should have asked that I haven't asked, what would it be, and what would the answer be?
That's a good one. It's a bit like Jeopardy, isn't it? I mean, I don't know the exact makeup of your audience, but I think what most people are looking for is like, what's the key to make it in this game, in this internet marketing space, in the online business. And I could if I could give a couple of pieces of advice, it would be, I mean, the first and very cliche, but cliches are cliches for a reason, is because they're true, is stick with it, because when you do crack it, and the only reason you won't crack it is if you don't stick with it. When you do, it is one of the most, it's so fun. It is so fun to wake up every day and get to work on creating content around stuff that I'm interested in, and work with people of a like mind, and think about engineering, systems and offers and all that. Like, it is, you couldn't have a better job. So, keep that in mind if you think about quitting, because that's what you're potentially sacrificing. the other thing too is to keep yourself as level as possible. So there's going to be, over the average journey for someone who does stick with it, there's going to be some amazing highs, but there's also going to be some amazing lows. And I think for a lot of people getting started, they're naturally going to tie those to money, and it's not always the case. 3 of the toughest months in my business came after I had a 6-figure day, and that was because I had other shit going on. I was lost. I didn't have the direction that I needed. And that's going to happen. You're going to have huge highs and you're going to have some pretty bad lows. And your ability to kind of trim the top and the bottom off those and stay as kind of central as possible will preserve your energy and your kind of mental sanity. So ride the roller coaster, but don't get when things celebrate, but don't celebrate too much. And when things are bad, deal with them, but don't get stuck in the dumps. It's like try and stay as centered as possible, regardless of which direction things go. What's the old saying? It's never as good as it seems, and it's never as bad as it seems. That's a really helpful tip in this space, because both things will happen, and you need to try and stay centered. And I think the third piece would be, you've got to really balance a long-term and a short-term perspective. Always have some clarity on where you're ultimately going and why you're doing something. I see people who, particularly in the affiliate space, they jump between offers, they jump between opportunities, they jump between programs, and that, they might be promoting something really good, and then the next week I'll see them and they're into some like crypto bullshit, and I'm like, you're regressing, you're going backwards. So if you've got clarity on where you want to go, just make sure that each of the steps that you're taking each day, each piece of content, each offer you make, is that ultimately pushing you in the direction that you want to go, or are you starting to go down a path? And this is the same as life, but in a business context, like, are you ultimately moving in the direction that you want to go? And that move, is that going to be something that in 5 years' time you're going to look back and go, that was really stupid, or that was really smart? So you've got to balance the short term with thinking, is this ultimately taking me in the right direction? And following your gut is super important. Everyone looks externally for advice. I think bringing it back internally is going to give you a lot more insight in a lot of cases.
Yeah, that's brilliant answers. It's been great chatting to you today. And I hope the audience out there gets a lot of value from you, and takes note on some of the things that you said, because some of them, the very important subjects that you pointed out, and topics that you pointed out today. So on the behalf of the audience, I want to thank you for coming on and sharing your insights.
It's been good.
So guys, don't forget to like and subscribe for future episodes coming up later down the line. And it's been a pleasure, as always. See you on the next one.
See ya.